But the first of those principles is God owns everything and I'm his money manager. And there's many passages of scripture about God owning everything. For instance, Psalm 24 verse 1 says, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, which really covers a lot of ground. The world and all who live in it. Everything and all. Comprehensive. It all belongs to God. Now, God owns everything. I'm his money manager. Well, what that means is, okay, if God has entrusted this to my care, it isn't that I own it. He owns it. I'm his money manager. Well, if you had a money manager, and some of you do, and you said, okay, well, I entrusted this money to your care. What did you do with it? And the money manager says, well, I don't know. I was just like, it's just one day it was there, and the next day it was there, and I don't know. I just sort of lost track of it. You would not be impressed. And so we're God's money managers, so we better ask him, for one thing, what he wants us to do with what belongs to him. It's completely different. See, if it's all mine, you could argue, well, if it's all yours, it's nobody else's, you do whatever you want to. But if it belongs to God, that's a paradigm shifter right there. Because if it's his, I better ask him what he wants me to do with it. And Scripture gives us some great answers.
I like the way you say in that, not all the money God has given me.
Right.
Yeah, and you've said it twice. It's all the money God has entrusted me. Every one of us is stewards. And would you say that? Believers as well as non-believers?
Yes, absolutely. Because he is the creator, whether we recognize him as that or not. The universe belongs to him. Everything belongs to him. Our lives belong to him. Our time belongs to him. The gifts he has entrusted to us, they're from his hand. He gets the glory and the credit for them. We better ask him what we want to do. He wants us to do with our time as well. Second one, my heart always goes where I put God's money. Matthew chapter 6, where Jesus says, don't store up for yourselves treasures on earth. And why should you not store up for yourselves treasures on earth? Well, moth and rust corrupt and thieves break in and steal. In other words, not just that it's wrong to store up treasures on earth, it's stupid because they're not going to last. And so God values treasures that will last. So he turns right around, Jesus does, and says, do store up for yourselves. Wow, that's surprising, for ourselves. In other words, it's not only for God's glory, it's for our good. Store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. Why? Because it's the right thing to do? Well, it is the right thing to do, but because it's the smart thing to do, because they're going to last forever. So my heart always goes where I put God's money. That's where he then says that when you store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where your treasures are, there your heart will be also. So if you want a heart for the things of God, give to the things of God. If you want a heart for missions, give to missions. You want a heart for your local church? Oh, I feel really disconnected. I don't really feel a part of things. Invest. Give to your local church. And then where your treasure is, there your heart will be. And if all your treasures are in the stock market and in real estate and in this house and this, then that's where your heart's going to be. So then the third of those is heaven, not earth, is my home. And I would kind of write that a little differently now than I did when I wrote the treasure principle, because heaven, not the present earth as it now is my home. Because one day the earth, the new earth, will be our home. That's where we will live forever. But meanwhile, I'm a citizen of another country, and Scripture says my citizenship is in heaven. So heaven, not earth, is my home. The fourth principle, I should live not for the dot, but for the line. You know, our life here is a dot. It's just tiny. It starts and it ends right there. But from that dot extends a line that goes out for eternity. So if we're wise, though we live in the dot, that's the only place we can live right now. But we're not going to live for the dot, just for this present life. We're going to live for the life that goes on forever. We're going to live not for the dot, but for the line that goes out to the glory of God forever. And the fifth of the six is giving is the only antidote to materialism. Mm-hmm. How do you break the back of the false idol of materialism, the false God that we're so susceptible to? And I don't know how else you do it but by giving. Because when you give it away, then you're recognizing this isn't my God. Because I still have God. I don't give away God when I give away money. I give away money and invest it joyfully in God's kingdom and to help people in need and to feed the hungry and to translate the Bible in all these languages, all of these things. And I get great joy in that. And that breaks the back of materialism. And then,
let me comment, because I love what you said. It was subtle, but it was an amazing insight. The reason a lot of people have a hard time giving is because when you have a God, when you have an idol that is your life-giving source, the last thing you want to do is separate yourself from it. So for me, if money is my God and comfort is my God that I get through money, why would I want to give that away? And it's why people don't give it, which is why, as you've already observed, Jesus said, hey, listen, money is the number one indicator that we can often see about what somebody's heart really is all about. And so that was just a little subtle thing that Randy put in there, but it's a great way to check yourself. If you're not sharing and giving and having great joy in giving, sharing the abundance of God's provision for you that he's entrusted you with to bless others, which is so consistent with the nature and character of the God of our scriptures, it's maybe a good little tell that you're holding on to your God and not living in relationship with the God that you think you necessarily have. All right, number 6.
Yeah, God prospers me not to raise my standard of living, but to raise my standard of giving. I think we have a really erroneous assumption, and that is that we who live in one of the most affluent societies in human history, and even middle class, even upper, lower class in our culture is actually way beyond the standard of living that most cultures in all of human history and in the world today have ever experienced. I don't mean there's no poverty in America. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying that for most of us, the vast majority of us here today, we are wealthy people. You might be in the 97th or 98th percentile of wealth in the world, and not in the 99th percentile, but you still have a lot. And so our assumption sometimes is, well, when more money comes our way, what am I going to do with it? I got to spend it on myself, right? I mean, that's why it comes this way. One of the analogies that I use in a couple of my books, I think Money, Possessions, Eternity, and Managing God's Money, maybe the Treasure Principle too, is think of it this way. I'm a writer, so I have certain manuscripts that come and go, and other things with FedEx. So I get a fair number of FedEx deliveries. And so, hey, if you work for UPS, I'm all for UPS too. United States Post Office, we gotta want to cover the ground here. Okay, but anyway, the point is, the guy comes to the door and brings a package, maybe picks up a package and takes it. Well, what would my response be if I found out that, for the last 6 months, when the FedEx guy comes to my door and he's been taking those packages, he's been taking them home and opening them up and keeping them? Well, what would I do? I would confront the FedEx guy, right? I mean, I would say, wait a minute. Why did you take those home and keep them instead of taking them on to have them delivered to the person for whom it was intended? Well, what if they looked at me and said, well, if you didn't want me to keep that, why did you give it to me in the first place? To which I would respond, you're the FedEx guy. It's your job to take what is entrusted to you and then to get it where the person who was sending it wants it to get. So what makes us think that just because God has given us so much, he wants us to hang on to it?